Hello, I'm Michel Reillac. I'm co-curator with Liz Rosenthal of Venice VR. We have selected this year around 25 works in the official competition. And what is absolutely remarkable is that even though these works are coming from many, many different countries, the only country that is represented with 7 of these pieces is Taiwan. It is a remarkable tribute to the efforts, the strategy, the intention that Taiwan has, and mainly through TAICCA, to support new works in immersive media. There's no other country in our eyes that supports this birth of a new language, of a new art form, as Taiwan does. We haven't chosen these works just because we like Taiwan or because we consider that the country is far ahead in terms of public support for emerging artists. We have selected these works just because they're excellent. And what's also remarkable is that those works that are made possible through the support of TAICCA and other organizations in Taiwan, such as the Kaohsiung Festival and Lab, we have been struck by how diverse those works are in terms of genre, in terms of style, ranging from stop motion animation using puppetry, like in the Sick Rose, to very sophisticated interactive animation with The Last Worker, very advanced live action recording mixed with volumetric capture in Bedlam. There has been a range of experiments that are making strides in terms of the genre of immersive arts as a whole. The other thing that is absolutely striking with the works supported by Taiwan is the fact that the policy that TAICCA has chosen to apply does not limit itself to projects that are strictly coming out of Taiwan. It is remarkable that the support has been also applied to international co-productions. It's remarkable in those times because we tend to be in a moment where countries tend to close onto themselves and focus on what comes out strictly from within their borders. In Taiwan, thanks to TAICCA, there are options now for Taiwanese artists to work, collaborate with other countries, with other institutions or production companies elsewhere in the world. And there's an option for international companies to find support for their projects in Taiwan. This open-mindedness is something absolutely remarkable and is a sign of progress, a sign of understanding where the world should go, to fix its own problems. So through the arts, through VR, through the work, the enlightened work that TAICCA, Kaohsiung, and all other partners involved in the Taiwanese strategy to support the arts, all of this actually contributes to show the way for any other country where to go in terms of making the world a better place. So thank you so much, all of you in Taiwan involved in making this, the makers. I'm thinking also of a piece like In the Mist that is incredibly progressive and is showing the challenge that it represents for independent artists to find access to digital distribution. For all these reasons, we thank you for the work done, and we're more than honored to show the works that have been supported in Taiwan.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Aurélien Dirler. I am an advisor to TAICCA, specializing on audiovisual policies, international cooperation, with a strong focus on XR, which has been a big part of my work in the past 5 years, since moving to Taiwan in 2016. I am thrilled to be here with great people, old friends, new friends, very talented people. I will introduce them in a moment. But today we're celebrating an amazing, incredible lineup of Taiwanese works selected by Venice this year. And when you look at the selection, this is not just about the numbers, this is also about the diversity. The diversity of topics, of backgrounds, the diversity of formats, and even the nationalities of the works. Why we have this conversation today is precisely because of that diversity that you can see in the selection. Of course, this is a statement. 7 works selected, 5 in competition, the 5 works funded by TAICCA. But this is not about doing promotion. We're here to, we think that this reflects a commitment of Taiwan and TAICCA and the partners and the different players of the ecosystem towards what we call future content. So what we want to focus on really is the diversity of the profiles and the genre and how we see this as a strength for the future and explain why it matters. Actually, we were not sure we would do this panel, but we think the timing is very important. And even this title was actually not supposed to be the final title, but it was like project name and eventually because it fits what we're working on and the conversation of the moment, like we never took the time actually to replace it. So here we are with this Taiwan XR Player One panel. So this is really about telling the world, of course, that we have this commitment that like we are going to support those works, that we're working on a series of mechanisms, programs, funds to connect all those people. But, like the conversation really is about what's happening and what will happen in the near future for such high quality projects to all meet here in Venice and having this in common, being made in Taiwan or with Taiwanese partners. So of course we will talk about the great local works, the beauty of the diversity and their strength, but those also which have not been initiated here and which would have not been possible without the support of Taiwan. From theater to video game, we have everything that will shape the future of immersive experiences. And in the near future, the metaverse, live, real-time, interactive, immersive, connected, embodied experiences. So this is what we will be talking about today. So now let me introduce today's speaker. Let's start with Jörg Tittel. You're a producer at OIFI. You're writer and director of The Last Worker, which is a highly anticipated VR game to be delivered in 2022, and the only video game in competition in Venice this year. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here. And in the spirit of diversity and openness, which I hope we will get into on this panel, my pronouns are he and him.
And next to me is Hui Chen. You're marketing director at Pumpkin VR, which is a VR studio based in the south of Taiwan, in the beautiful city of Kaohsiung. You use Unreal Engine to craft video games, and you've joined The Last Worker as a co-producer.
Hi everyone, my name is Hui. I'm from Pumpkin VR, and I pronounce myself like she and her.
And next to Hui is Jo Dong-yen. You're a stage director, new media artist. You're the founder and director of Very Theater. And most importantly, you're the director of In the Mist, a beautiful piece funded by Kaohsiung VR Film Lab, and which has its own section somehow in Venice this year.
Hi everyone, my name is Yan, and my pronouns are he and him. I'm very happy to be here.
And with us as well, we have our dear friend Grace Lee. You're the head of Kaohsiung VR Film Lab, joining us live from Kaohsiung because you're very busy at the moment finalizing the selection of VR works for the Kaohsiung Film Festival, which takes place next month. But you're also a producer because since 2017, Kaohsiung has been funding 5 VR pieces every year. And you also run the first VR theater in Taiwan, which is located in Kaohsiung and which is also named VR Film Lab.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your kind introduction, Aurelian. Like you just mentioned, our organization is involved in many different fields in XR content, XR industry. I would say it's definitely a wonderful journey for us. So very pleasure to be here today and very looking forward to having conversation with those wonderful panelists.
And last but not least, Antoine Cardon, who was supposed to be with us today, but unfortunately he cannot join us at the moment, so we will insert his answers and comments in this panel. He's the co-founder of El Gabal and producer of Bedlam in competition in Venice. People know Antoine probably for his previous company because he's the founder and ex-CEO of Divi Group, which was a world-leading VR studio. And he has created some of the most groundbreaking VR works in recent years, such as Alice, the virtual reality play. And hopefully Antoine can tell us a bit more later about Bedlam and how this piece is a case for future content and some of the technologies that will propel the metaverse and how this is actually very much related to the Taiwanese ecosystem somehow.
So I'm Antoine Cardon. I'm one of the producers of Bedlam. I'm also the co-founder of a company named El Gabal, which is producing extended reality theater content and more generally immersive content. And we are also developing a platform which allows anyone to be able to distribute metaverse-like content easily with the widest reach and the highest quality. I wanted to thank TAICCA for supporting Bedlam since really the beginning and helping us making this a reality. And I'm also very happy to be able to talk today and be one of the speakers during this this panel, because it means that I am a part of this Taiwanese revolution.
So let's start the conversation. As I mentioned, like there is this very strong, very impressive diversity of the profiles, the themes, the formats, and the nationalities when we look at those works selected this year. And two works stand out because they are not actually local stories. They have not even been initiated in Taiwan. And those two works are The Last Worker and Bedlam. And I would like to start with a question for Jörg. Let's start with you. You've been selected with a video game, the only one in selection in Venice this year. This is a very ambitious project. And my question is, why Taiwan? How did you end up doing this co-production? And what's the benefit of such, such a way of working remotely, 10,000 kilometers apart? And how is it going so far, actually?
That's really interesting. I first came to Taiwan in 2016, like yourself, but not to move there permanently, although I wish I had done, because Brexit UK is not a nice place to live in. But I was in Taiwan also in 2017, location scouting for a feature-length film called Ricky Rouse Has a Gun, which we're now making as an animated feature and a game. But that's for the future. And that's something I would very much like to do with Taiwan as well. But I was location scouting, meeting people, the incredible diversity of the country in terms of food, in terms of people, in terms of landscapes, and I was absolutely blown away by it. And so I became friends with a bunch of people in Taiwan, and to this day I'm working very closely with a variety of people. And so 2 years ago, no, it was last year, it feels like an eternity with this pandemic, I was in Berlin and I was invited to the Taiwan Creates Party and the creative party of from Taiwan. And of course, it was a nervous time because everyone was freaking out already about the pandemic for all the right reasons. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go to a party. Hopefully I won't catch anything. I'll just drink lots of vodka and that should disinfect it, hopefully. And that's where I met the team from TAICCA. And they told me about what's being planned. I said, oh, if I can have an excuse to not just work physically with Taiwan, but also digitally, I would love to have it, because it's such an absolute pleasure to work with Taiwanese people. And so that's how that began. So it all began in Berlin, really, at the Berlin Film Festival last year. And so I started talking. I was already starting to put The Last Worker together. It's a project that I've been trying to get off the ground for about 4 years. And come March last year, Oculus came on board and started funding the project. Then I got a publisher involved as well, called Wired Productions here in the UK. And in the middle of all of this, I was very, very lucky to receive a grant from TAICCA and then team up with Pumpkin to work with them. So it's been a love story between me and Taiwan for a while, and I'm just really happy that we found this pandemic-proof way of working together digitally, so far apart, but so closely together.
My next question is for Hui, because you're an independent studio working on your own ambitious multiplayer VR melee game. And how did you choose to join, this project as a co-production partner? And how is it going so far? Because you basically joined in the middle of a pandemic, and knowing that there is like 10,000 kilometers between you and New York. So how is it what's the process, the workflow like, and what's the benefit of working on such a project?
Well, actually, even though we're based in Kaohsiung and we really focus on our own game, but it just happened. It just happened. I don't know why and how, but it just happened because Jörg, I think I will leave this part for him, but I would like to say it's not like a general co-production or work together type, but it's more like because we communicate more like friends and partners. So during the process of co-working or communication, it's all just like having chatting with friends, really. It's like that. So if we talk about what's the benefit for us, like an independent studio, or what's the benefit or for Taiwanese studios, I would say it's a very good opportunity that TAICCA provides because as we are, once again, we are based in Kaohsiung. So here's actually some culture gap between South Taiwan and North Taiwan. And we have a little, and sometimes we feel a little bit isolated from the center. So this is a very good opportunity for us to join an international team and to have support from TAICCA, and also to see and to be part of a great game, a great project.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, I've always felt that artists have no boundaries and have no borders, and that's always been the case. And it's really quite interesting to even look at artists like Van Gogh, who were poor in their day, but somehow managed to be in touch with all the great painters of the time. Somehow we find each other and we communicate, even when we're poor, even before the internet. So, but now we have the tools, and it's been it's incredible to feel like you're in the same room with another person through lots of digital tools that have now, thanks to this horrible pandemic, been accelerated and become more and more mainstream in their usage. So, I mean, even my local team here in the UK, we had to work from home the majority of last year. No one was physically with one another. So what's the difference whether you're in Taiwan or in Newcastle or in London or in LA? We are all one and we can all collaborate. And if there's one thing that this horrible time has given us the confidence for, is that there are no borders, and that anyone who tries to enforce them on us right now is a hypocrite and is a liar. The art, creating art and digital art especially, is not just possible, but it's important. And with Pumpkin, as Hui has said, we have just been working from day one as people who admire each other's work, who are who are supportive of each other, and said, you guys want to help out, we have a lot of stuff to build, and it's amazing that they came on board. It's been an absolute pleasure working with them.
My next question is for Grace. After a very solid 2019 program, you had to organize the last edition of the festival during the pandemic, and you still, organize your VR section. But I was very surprised by one thing last year, and we already discussed this a few times, but I want to ask you again about your choices as a curator, because you got Yen's work, which was produced by Kaohsiung, but you also brought other people with theater background. You brought the work from Babu, Chroma, which is also one of the best VR pieces of last year. And also like just pure immersive theater experiences without tech at all. And to me, it said two things. It said something about the direction that we're heading to, and it said also something about the amazing talents that we have in Taiwan. To me, that confirmed that we could also, focus on this and combine those two things together and bring that it makes sense to bring those people from different industries and provide them with the tools. But what was your take on all this? And is this still the direction you're going to follow this year as well?
To answer your questions, I think we need to tell a little bit story backward about where we begin. So the program started from 2017, and original idea is very simple. That we noticed there's a new trend, and some of the major film festivals like Venice and people in the industry, they are discussing about this topic about the new way of storytelling, like how VR, AR, different new technology and tools will affect of the storytelling. So we are just very curious about how this media will go further and what is the impact to traditional cinema. So the way we do it is every year we invite a director and provide them fundings to help them to create the VR works. So the director we usually work with is from traditional cinema because we are also from this background. It's very natural. But we are very lucky in the process to work with those directors. We learn this media and we also see lots of different works from XR contents. So we noticed there's a very different thought or knowledge of doing VR and compared to the traditional cinema is that usually when we do the traditional cinema, we are creating the frame, or we can say we are creating something in 2D dimension. You still have the limits and box in that. But when you create the XR works, you are working with a space. You need to let audience inside a space. So it's definitely totally different thought on the understanding of this media. So we kind of understand that maybe the people from the theater or stage background might have a more understanding for this work. So we start to do the research of this kind of director, and Dong Yan himself has a multi background in the past. He also do the short film, but he also his mainly experience is in theater. So we just love his work, and we approach him and ask him if he want to do the project with us. So I would say it's a very lucky experience, and we are very proud of we can do the in the midst.
And indeed, you've been experimenting with film and with technology before. I've seen one of your latest play, Virtual Intimacy, in which you actually use also technology to involve the audience, to make them part of the whole process. How was your contact with VR? Like your VR piece is a 360 VR piece made with Unique. And I'm sure like you've seen also like interactive works. We've discussed together about also like other works such as Bedlam. How do you see, what was your experience in making this film, and how do you see the potential for you? What's attractive about this in the future as well?
Yeah, I am a curious kid, I think. Ever since I was in college, I majored in theater directing, but I have been playing with video. So sometimes I think in frame, but a lot of time I think in a box. So for me, VR is really close to me. And when Grace, they approached me to ask me if I'm interested in doing something like that, I start to connect what's my best VR experience. And then I tried to collect them. And then at that time, I was doing an international collaboration with a Danish institution called Chronicle of Light Year, which use hologram projection. So I think Grace, they saw the potential of making it into a VR version. And but in the end, due to the pandemic, I was supposed to perform the Chronicle of Light Year, but it was canceled. So I suddenly have a great national theater in Taichung for me to film. I started to think maybe I can do some tryout of my idea in the midst, which is about gay sauna, which is about a steam room, and it's sexual. And then how do I play my game? How do I make the perspective change and gradually evolve into something else? So for me, VR should be very sensational. And I find maybe Sona is a good place to start. I mean, normally VR brings you to somewhere you can never be, right? Like very deep in the sea or out in the outer space. And this time, what about somewhere very intimate? And but it was a very it was a really adventurous journey because whoever did a VR 360 filming know that you need to have somehow a bigger space. But my steam room is so narrow and confined, and so that all these blind lines are just killing me. So I'm very lucky to work with Phoenix Studio. They were so artistic driven that they spend a lot of time doing it, and I'm really curious what the audience in Venice will think about this film. Yeah.
I want to go back to one thing mentioned by Grace. You said that you wanted to include people with different backgrounds, but that originally the kind of profiles that you were looking for were mostly people from audiovisual background. And I think this is something very interesting. Again, this is a discussion that we've had together a few times, but to me, this is something that we've been thinking about for quite some time, but that feels, this idea feels very mature now. I mean, a few years back, I'm not so sure, but to me, it's like there was a first chapter, like 2016 to 2020, and we've seen a lot of studios focusing on VR and designing, creating this language, the grammar, and most of those people came from audiovisual background indeed. Like they came from documentary, television, cinema, and it's not that they applied the grammar of film to VR. They did understand that this new medium required a new grammar. But still, like I feel that now that we see more and more diverse profiles trying to express something with the tools, that there is a huge potential, and maybe it's also because the technology is evolving, and I think it's very much like we're entering a second stage where it's about time to really connect like all the industries together. Like I mean, like the creative industries fields, people from again like video game, people from live theater, and I wonder if this is a direction you're going to take with Kaohsiung as well.
Thank you for notice and mention we try to showcase different kind of work during the festival. I think the understanding of the production of this media definitely affect me with the curation part for the festival. Because for me, the main goal is to try to showcase and present different kind of works, all of the possibility, all of the way of new way of telling story to the audience and also to the creators. It's not only about the theater works, it's also we try to showcase all of different kinds of works. Some of it's only like sound installation with no image, and some of is really experimental works, and some of like interactive story. And all of this kind of thing, I think the main goal we try to say is like there is a new edge or new area from the new way of storytelling, and this is really happening. I believe myself, the change is happening. We are now standing at the beginning of fourth industrial revolution, and this change is about every aspect from the daily life to every industry. So I think all the different XR words nowadays is we can say one of the pioneers of these new languages. And I don't think the chaos will settle down very soon. Everything will still change rapidly and very fast in the future years. So for us, being the festival and also the organization be able to support creators, I think our main responsibility is to accompany them or try to give them different thoughts to open their horizon.
Jörg, what do you think about this? Because you've experimented with many formats, many different medium, And you know, like, because VR is moving so much towards, you know, live, real time, you know, like even some of the skills that are, you know, coming from video game, like, I don't know, like narrative designer, become very relevant to those interactive experiences. But on the contrary, for you, like, I mean, like, how do you see, you know, like this tool, like basically real-time and immersive technologies? Like, to you, is it video game? Is this like just making a narrative piece, or is this something at the intersection and you're not sure yet of the form that it actually is?
I mean, it's interesting. I grew up as the son of a composer, Joanna Brzdovich, who's done the music for most of Agnes Varda's films, for instance. And so I was always around live music and theater and film. And to me, those things felt like one from day one. And then when I studied theater at New York University to School of the Arts, and I went to Stella Adler where I studied acting, in order to pay for you know, my life in New York, I was working as a video game journalist, and back in the late 90s, and that felt really normal to me. It felt normal to me to be engaged with video games and theater and film at the same time. And it's like, one day I just want to bring it all together. And I would meet with people in LA eventually when I was working for Activision, the game company, briefly. And I would tell them this, and they thought I was a megalomaniac. They're like, "Oh, you would make games and movies at the same time in theaters? What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, that's where we're headed. That's what we'll eventually all be doing, because otherwise we'd all be ruled by special effects people. And I don't want to be ruled by special effects people. I want the storyteller to be at the center of the creative experience. I want the storyteller to be educated in all the different forms and engaged in all the different media, so they can be in charge. Because if you take a look at all the Marvel stuff that's coming out, you know, for about 3/4 of the production, it's the special effects people that dictate the vision. And eventually everything looks the same and everything looks plastic and nothing is organic anymore. So that sort of top heaviness of tech people dominating the storytelling is something I want to see the end of. I want to return to the core of what storytelling narrative is. And so VR is actually doing that. We are actually returning to the old idea of the sort of village storyteller in an African village, bringing everyone together and then eventually pulling in a kid or an old lady, et cetera, to be part of the narrative, the idea of an immersive narrative experience. That's where storytelling, sorry, my camera is going dark. Oh, yes. That's where immersive storytelling started, and that's where it's returning to. And so with The Last Worker, it's more of a game than it is a movie, and it's also more than a game than it is theater, but I have an incredible cast. I have actors who've all been incredible stage actors, like Jason Isaacs and Oliver Dari Olofsson and Claire Hope Ashity and David Hewlett, like amazing acting talent. But also I allow the player to be a physical, active participant in the story and actually embody a character physically throughout the game. And at the same time, it's a very visual and very cinematic experience, and I have incredible music, etc. So it's a game, yeah, it will be sold as a game. But I think I'm so grateful to Michel and Liz to recognize this as something that should be part of the Venice Film Festival, because those lines are blurred beautifully now. And I feel that I'm finally at home in this immersive media, because that's where storytelling started and that's where it has to end up again.
Yeah, as you said, like real time has been blurring the lines, like we've seen in recent months, like even for traditional cinema or TV series, we've been talking a lot about virtual production. We've been talking about how real-time game engines are also going to change the game for animation. And it's true that it makes everything more blurred, and it's also a lot easier somehow to port, you know, like your assets from one format to another, and to play with this, you know, like this, those lines which become very blurred. So is this something that you will continue to do in the future, or experiment with?
Yeah. Absolutely. We are working on a film called A Winter's Journey, which is based on Schubert's Winterreise, his song cycle. It'll be, my wife Alex Helfrecht has adapted it and is directing it. We're working with a console manufacturer who I cannot name at the moment on using their new real-time creative technology to build all of the film's environments. It will then be painted over by the team behind Loving Vincent, the Oscar-nominated film about Van Gogh. We'll be using live music. We're working with Deutsche Grammophon and Universal Music Group on that. What I'm excited about in that film, the film also has John Malkovich in the cast and a bunch of other fantastic actors. We'll be talking about that more later in the year. But what's exciting about that project as well is that instead of working with a big VFX team, building 3D environments, etc., we are working with one artist, working in a real-time game technology engine. And we're not, and again, that's not dominating the visuals of the film. We're painting over everything. It's going to look absolutely stunning. But what Alex, the director of the film, has realized, she was very afraid to have all this digital dominance. And the irony is that the digital tools are getting so good now, is that we need to make them feel organic again. Now we've arrived at a point where the digital needs to and can feel organic. And I don't want to have IT managers controlling the creative process. And it started to feel like that. It started like you're sitting in cubicles and the guy comes over, it's like, well, the processor doesn't quite cannot handle this right now. So what you need is an update and a new driver. I mean, it's like we cannot be making films and telling stories like that. We need the tools to get out of our way and allow us to flow through it. And so that's what we're doing. We're working with one artist in a 3D engine to build an entire film's world, which is exciting. And so I think eventually us directors and filmmakers and storytellers will be able to physically manipulate the world around us and create things with artists as opposed to technicians. And that doesn't mean that the artists shouldn't have technical skills. We all have technical skills. My kids know how to use, digital devices almost from birth, much better than I ever will now. So, in the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years, we will all be technical artists. But I want us to be artists first and technicians second.
So we've been talking about immersive theater, and actually, Antoine, a question for you. That's a path you've taken very early. You've been a pioneer of VR theater, trying to define a new format at the intersection of theater and VR. And everyone remembers the impact of Alice, the virtual reality play in 2017 and the other works that followed. So why did you choose that route so early, and what's the situation now with Bedlam? Like, what's been the process like, and what's the difference now?
So to answer this question, I will need to go back a little in our history. We started working with 360 videos early 2015. And we have always been a bit frustrated by the results. We were at that time already discussing with neuroscientists, which were telling us about the importance of proprioception principles and the embodiments to build a good immersion in VR. And clearly 360 video wasn't doing it. Also at that time we were very interested with what was happening in the physical space in this immersive universe, and there was a lot of very interesting projects like the punch drunk pieces. Sleep No More is one of them, like what was happening in Santa Fe at Mio Wolf, or the kind of experiences that happen with video projection and so on. And all those experiences had one thing in common. It was embodied, it was social, people could move freely, it was non-linear. And all this was very appealing to us. And the thing that made us think about this possibility to mix immersive theater with extended realities technologies. And it was really brand new, the possibility to have motion capture which was a lot cheaper than before. What we wanted to achieve basically was really to push the boundary and to create a universe where the spectators were becoming actors of the story and could, really change the story, interact with the characters, something that even immersive theater had difficulties to do because of some scale considerations. And that's something that we can achieve in VR. Also, and of course, we exploit this for our first piece, Alice the Virtual Reality Play. VR gives us the possibility to build an environment which is boundless, limitless, where you can show whatever you want, which you can't do or you can, well, it's very difficult to do in a physical location. So that's all the components that we tried to put together to build our first piece, which was very experiential and experimental. At the same time as other projects which were trying to corner the same idea. Now there is more and more companies which are building extended reality theater performances, and I think that it's a format that will develop a lot because it's at the crossroads between cinema and games. It has some components of what happened in an escape game, and all this is very appealing to the spectators, which are always looking for new things to do and fulfill the expectations that we can have nowadays when we are seeking for entertainment, interesting entertainment.
So what's interesting is that you came to Taiwan 3 years ago, and I remember perfectly that you told me at that time, and you told actually everyone you met here, that they should be aware that Taiwan has one of the most complete, if not the most complete, XR ecosystem in the world. And now you're working in close contact with this ecosystem for Bedlam. And I think the project is still like quite mysterious for too many people. So maybe you can explain a bit about the plan, about what's the work about and what's the technology behind it, and explain why you're working with TAICCA and with Taiwan.
So about Bedlam, it is a mysterious project. We have worked on it since 3 years, and actually there is a lot of different versions of Bedlam that we designed. Clearly the first version that we work with was a purely location-based version. And we were actually in the middle of the production when COVID started and lockdown started everywhere in the world. And exactly at that time, we were looking for distributors and financing partners. And we couldn't really propose a location-based business model. So we had to redesign the whole experience, taking this as these constraints as something we needed to solve. So of course we thought about virtualization very early. So this idea that the spectators would be at home and the actors would be at home, and that everyone would meet inside of this virtual environment to do the show. But that meant a lot of constraints coming with this. When you are doing a location-based show, you have control over all the parameters. For example, the technology that you're using is something that you control. You know, the kind of GPU that you are using, the headsets, so it's more easy to build something working well. When you want people to use their own devices, it starts to be much more difficult, and it's something that we know very well when we are doing video games, and it takes a very long time and a lot of energy, and it costs a lot of money to have something that works on many devices. That was our first issue. The second issue, of course, that was that Our idea of virtual reality was that you need to use an headset to be able to experience it. But at that time, there was like some very good cases that showed us that an headset wasn't mandatory. And actually, when you see what happens in Fortnite or in Roblox, this is virtual reality. And people can experience it with any devices, and it works. Of course, it's a little bit less immersive, but it still works, and the reach is not the same at all. We wanted to have like the widest reach possible, and this issue with virtualization and with like this very spread ecosystem of device forced us to build a very custom solution. The idea is that we're not going to use any of the computing power of the user, the spectator's devices, but everything is going to be rendered on the cloud. Basically, we built a complete solution, a platform that allow exactly this. Very simple and cost-effective, but at the same time, high-quality motion capture that actors can do from their home, without the need of technicians or to invest a lot of money in the equipment. And the possibility for the spectators to connect on any device, and that all the rendering is done on the cloud. So that allows us to solve all those issues and to build an experience where the main components were still there. The thing which is really interesting us, which is this very subtle interactions between the spectators and the actors. We also kept the most important thing, which was this format of storytelling, which is non-linear, where the spectator becomes the actor of the show, and where storytelling becomes really story living. That's what we try to build with Bedlam. So to be able to build that, we had some dreams about the technology that we could use. And as Aurelia mentioned, when I came to Taiwan 3 years ago, I discovered that most of the devices that we are using are actually built in Taiwan. NVIDIA chipsets are built in Taiwan. iPhones, VR headsets, all these technologies is really manufactured in Taiwan. At the same time, there is an ecosystem which is one of the best in the world to support future contents in Taiwan. We had the chance to work with the Kaohsiung Festival very early on 360 video content, and there was this heavy support, this understanding of what we were trying to achieve. And after I met Aurelia at that time, and after we continued talking together, and TAICCA has been built, he told me about what were the mission of TAICCA, and that was one more ammo for supporting the kind of project that we were doing. At the same time, I had the chance to speak to the chairperson Ding and share our opinions about what will be the future for the development of content. And there was a match in our vision in what future content is going to be. All those components together. Also the people I meet when I came 3 years ago and that were so advanced in content creation and on all departments, the technical parts, the storytelling parts, what was happening in the theater, all this made me want to work in Taiwan.
Well, there is one thing I would like to add very quickly. I totally agree with what you just mentioned about the organic thing and way when we do in the projects. I think this is a very important spiritual and attitude to make us today. It doesn't mean that you need to know everything, but the attitude of for open-minded and willing to try and learn new things and merge the people with different background is so important. Especially I think for this industry is so new, so every time when we work with new artists and new projects, it's totally new experience. I believe Yan, you will agree with me on this. Based on his previous work, I imagine he will create real time project because he's from theater and stage background, but he decided to do 360 live action work in the end. So it means that he definitely need expert from that fields to join his project. That's why we connect him to Filmic, the production company in Taiwan. So I believe this is also a new challenge to Yan. And for in the mix itself, I think the most interesting thing for me is the topic of the content has the connection with Yan's previous works. But this time when he decided to do this project and these films, he chose a very directly and unfiltered way to tell the story. This is very interesting for me because it present the understanding of the artist. What he think about, he want to tell the story. This is so special. So maybe Yan, you would like to share with us your thought on this?
Yeah, so I've been always interested in intimacy, and VR experience is such an intimate experience. So using it, I want to find a way that other media cannot express. Like it's something that you can only experience in VR. Actually, I tried to edit In the Mist into a sort of 2D square version, and I play it, and I didn't find it very interesting, and I suddenly realized that it was successful in a way that it is about being there, and also manipulating the space, like the space will actually eventually turn into a void. It's actually a bit like a Buddhism saying. It's like form is emptiness, emptiness is form, or color is emptiness, emptiness is form. So while I show you all the desire, and it will also evaporate, and leaves yourself there. One interesting thing is that with Kaohsiung Film Archives invitation, I'm actually making a short film. It was not supposed to be to be there, but due to the pandemic in Taiwan this year, there is a small fund for me, and I'm actually making a side story of In the Mist. And next year, I'm gonna make a live experience together with VR film. That's why I'm so interested in Badland, right? Like you can walk around, you can be in different chamber, and I'm really curious to know more and to follow up. Yes.
And I want.
If I can say.
Oh, yeah, please.
Because I think one thing that I find is so important with VR as well is that you can't second screen during a VR experience. The idea, I remember going to the premiere of Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton one. I don't know when it was, like 20 years ago or so, and it was just or more. And people had just started using, Blackberries and stuff and whatever. And in the seats in front of me, Puff Daddy was sitting there, and he was constantly this Blackberry. He was the only one in the whole audience with him, just showing it off, and it was beeping every 5 seconds during a film premiere. And I was like, what an asshole! And I couldn't believe it. At some point, tapped on the shoulder. He's like, dude, like, do you mind turning it off? And he's like, do you know who I am? But the thing is, everyone is Puff Daddy now. So when you look at, the way people watch films at home, it's like they'll have their mobile phone, their iPad, random devices beeping, and there's no respect and attention given to the storytelling. and your films end up on the Amazon Prime app in My Stuff. You know, I have Raging Bull in My Stuff on my Amazon Prime account. And I feel that this pursuit of content consumption, as opposed to actually truly engaging with a story and with the creative output of an artist, is very dangerous for the creative arts and for storytelling. And with VR, you are forced to engage with the story. You are immersed in it, you are being in it, and you're guaranteed not to have anyone take that away from you. And that's what I think is so beautiful. Not because I'm a control freak as an artist, because I actually feel that VR, in this world of constant distraction and this overabundance of content, is allowing us to focus the audience and the director and storytellers in on the storytelling and on the creativity and on culture and on the art and on expression, real personal expression. And that's on top of being intimate. It's that sort of attention that it gives that I find is essential for the survival of the, storytelling and the arts.
I would like to react as well on this idea of working organically, because I think, speaking on behalf of TAICCA, I think this is exactly what we try to do. Of course, we are trying to build a system with tools, programs, mechanisms to connect people and to support them and to attract major projects. But at the same time, we, Grace and I, we've been, in the past few years, we've been building so many connections, each our own way, but every time it's, connecting people one-to-one. And this takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort. And even when we manage to bring, one international project to Taiwan, this is still very much, we need a system and something that's more organic indeed. And I think this is what we're trying to do now. We have this program which is called the XR Days, and the idea is that it's not focused strictly on creators or filmmakers and producers. It's open to anyone, and the idea really is that anyone who has a particular skill should be able to apply, because that allows us also, that makes our job easier, because we want to do an inventory of the talents who are here, and we believe that someone who has a particular skill in sound, spatial sound, someone who's an expert of game engine, someone who does live stage performance, and who has an interest in the tools, they should be given this chance, to connect with other people who have different sets of skills and people they may actually have never met, and that creates opportunities and that may inspire them, and we know, we've seen many projects, being made in the past few years, and this is always how it happens. It's about encounters. So as much as we try to create a lot of systems and programs, those programs should actually be focused on working in these organic ways. That's really our belief, and I think this is something that is very much related to what Antoine is doing as well, and he can tell us a bit more about this, because he believes that Taiwan, because of many different skills and because, of course, of technology as well, but that it's completely ideally positioned to be a major, player for those immersive content and the metaverse. And actually, this is a question for Antoine. How do you see this happening, and in terms of the timeline, and what will be the opportunities and eventually the competition like?
So it's a very interesting question and a very complex question. Metaverse needs a lot of different components to work together to become a reality. It's at the crossroad of technology, infrastructure, and content. Clearly, for me, metaverse is going to be the future. It's a place where a lot of our life will happen in the future. When I see my kids, they define themselves almost equally in the physical space and in the digital space. The technology is there now with 5G, with all the VR equipment, with edge computing, which allows to distribute this kind of content. So all the pieces are here already, but not put together. What we can experience now with Fortnite, Roblox, VR chat, Facebook Horizon is something that I would call proto-metaverses. It's a first attempt to make this vision a reality. Of course, there is a lot of competition. You know, when you hear Mark Zuckerberg speaking over and over about the metaverse, and I think he's right. I mean, if he wants Facebook to be there in 25 years, he needs for Facebook to make the switch from this web-based platform to something that will be metaverse. 3D worlds which are very natural to interact in, which are social, which embeds, you know, all the entertainments, gaming, movies, adventures, theater, and so on. Epic is another, you know, heavy player. They raised $1 billion just with this keyword metaverse, and no one knows really what they want to do. But I have an idea that all those companies, they want to build something which will be highly proprietary. They want to build an ecosystem which is closed. By definition, it won't be a metaverse. Metaverse is like what happened with HTML. It's a layer in the digital space which anyone will be able to create content and anyone will be able to access. There is another point, which is that all those companies, they have, you know, bits of what is needed to be able to build this metaverse. But they don't have it all. Something that, and I was telling that before, Taiwan has the possibility to build. On the technological side, there is a lot of components which are still required to be able to build a true metaverse. And all those components are already currently built in Taiwan. And if you put them together, then you can create this technological layer that allows for the metaverse to be a reality. On the infrastructure side, it's also the same. Facebook and Epic, they have kind of infrastructure which, you know, serve very well what they are currently doing, but which is not the right one to be able to build the metaverse. There also I think that Taiwan has all the components which are required to build this infrastructure. And this infrastructure, it's about some technological elements like edge computers, but a new kind of edge computers. It's about the 5G and the connection to be able to access this computer. It's also about the devices that will be used and that needs to change a lot. We can access those worlds the right way, the proper way. And that's something that Taiwan is able to do. It's also about a business model. So there has been a lot of attempts about, you know, around cloud computing, cloud gaming, cloud workstation, and so on. And one of the big issues is about the business model. And there also I think that there is a very special time and space in Taiwan right now so that we can see the kind of business model which will allow this infrastructure and this technology to be deployed mass scale and all over the world. And it's something that may well start in Taiwan. There is a lot of other components also. Of course, metaverse will require a currency and to be able to buy things and pay things in a very universal way. And again, that's something that you can find in Taiwan. You can find key players in the blockchain with a project which could be very easily integrated in this whole ecosystem which is required to build a metaverse. And the last thing is that for many years now, in VR and XR, we have seen a certain kind of players. First, people which were coming from the movie industry, producers and so on, that started to get there, because it was mainly about shooting things, having real-life actors and creating linear storytelling. With the development of 6DoF, XR Theater is one example, we had like some people coming from the gaming industry that came in the pot, and it means that the kind of content that has been created resemble a lot what you could find in movies and what you could find in games. And actually, the kind of content that you will find in the metaverse will be completely different. It's more going to be about, you know, what happened live, what happened socially. It means that the creators, the type of creators, will change. I mean, there will always be people coming from the movies and people coming from the game industry, which are required to build true metaverse experiences. But I think that all the creators, generally, which works in the physical world, needs to come and bring their experience and know-how and talent to build those experiences in the metaverse. We need visual artists, we need sound designers, as Aurélien was mentioning, which knows about spatialization or not. We need, you know, music group that plays live. We need performers. We need people that will build the clothes designers. We need people that know how to do a light show. It's all those talents together that will allow to create the kind of experience that people will expect in a couple of years when metaverse has become a reality and is adopted widely. I think that it's going to go very quickly because there is this push from the GAFA. They're investing a lot of money into this vision, and that will help, of course. I think that COVID was a tremendous accelerator, because in one day, everyone had to meet digitally. We all spend our time doing Zoom meetings, and you know, this kind of social interaction within the digital space became something normal. And metaverse allows to have this kind of interaction, but in a much more natural way. So I do think that all this will happen very quickly, and that Taiwan is in a pole position to be able to create a high-value offer that the rest of the world may well adopt everywhere. I know for sure that Taiwan will be a part of this game, that's for sure. But I really do hope that we can all together build this proposition, build this ecosystem, and show the world that Taiwan can lead in the metaverse on the technological side, on the infrastructure side, and especially on the content side, because of everything that I told you before.
Yeah, because even though we are also a game studio, but what we do is online multiplayer PvP. So it's not storytelling, or it's not an hour's experience that we can provide to players. It's really focused on the moment, compete with each other in VR. But we never had an idea, or we never thought about one day probably we can cooperate with someone like Jörg, with some studios like Wolf and Woods or Elfie to create a storytelling VR experience. And let's think that's something TAICCA really, yeah, you guys really do a great job here, because without you guys, without you to bridge between us, I think we will never probably have a chance to project. Probably one day we can do something storytelling.
Well, that was actually my next question for
you.
Oh,
really?
I'm going to, like with the pandemic, I know that you had to change actually some of your plans, even related to the game that you've been developing for a few years. So that crisis had an impact on your product that is being developed right now. But now, with those co-productions and those new people you've met and all the new opportunities that we've discussed during this conversation, do you think it will impact the direction of your company as a game studio?
Yes, we are known as a game studio in Taiwan, but we are more than that. So actually, we've been focusing on our own game, Quanta, for over 3 years. And oh my God, it's going to be the first year because we're going to launch it next year. And by the meantime, we also have a cooperation project which is ongoing with a French studio called Lucy Realities. And that is not a game, it's a platform. It's a platform that we will build for VR content, storytelling, narrative VR contents. So the problem here, the problem we see in the market is there are tons of VR content, storytelling, narrative, theater, live experience, but once this content performed in a festival or somewhere else, what are they going to do next? How can they generate revenue from their content? How can they have another chance to expose themselves in the international market? So that's why we are trying to find a solution, not just for us, like we're create a huge project, something like that, but it's more for content creators. So this content is actually for these content creators that can help them to find an international market that they can reach out to global, like museum curators or festival curators, to help them to bridge from here to there, to help them to bridge globally. And this is a big project that I would like to emphasize in probably next time, or probably at TTCF's panel, or if I have chance, yeah.
So people has been saying that I'm brave to make this film is so provocative, but what strikes me is that it's Taiwan that is brave and courageous. The Kaohsiung City Government, the Kaohsiung Cultural Bureau, and also the National Taiwan Taichung Theater. When we have all these naked men in the theater, they were more relaxed than I am. I am the least courageous one. And it's such a wonderful place that we have been fighting for freedom of expression. There's nothing you cannot say. And I'm not the first queer artist who make queer work. There have been writers and filmmakers and who has influenced me, so that in the midst can birth in this land. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
I think what's amazing about what Yen's work is doing, for instance, and what the whole selection or all the films the project that have been selected for Venice with Taiwanese involvement, what they express is that in this world where some countries are being denied their freedoms, etc., and their identity, that through immersive media, a country can truly show off its incredible diversity and its courage and its openness and its collaborative spirit with other countries. And I hope that human freedom will not be limited to and confined to the metaverse down the road. but I'm very, very happy that it exists. And I'm very happy that VR allows us to freely express ourselves and show who we are and show how we are better human beings for it. And so I'm extremely grateful and privileged to be working with TAICCA and for the Venice Film Festival to have selected and recognized this as an essential part of culture today.
Yeah, also Venice Film Festival.
Yeah.
I must share. I'm so deeply thankful for Lise and Michelle, who bravely chose this film and made a special event for this. So yeah, thank you.
So I think that's it's time to go back live and to take some questions from Venice. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you so very much to all of you.